People who strive to speak truthfully. What is the most trouble you've gotten in for telling the truth? A teacher asked me who broke the laptop on her desk. I told her I think she did when she put the projector down on it for a minute while she was getting the cart ready. I got in trouble for lying, breaking the computer, talking back, and acting out in class. My dad had to show up and blow a gasket at the principal before they unpunished me and admitted put a £30 projector on top of an Apple laptop wasn't a good idea and that the dent on the back of the screen did look a bit like the circular foot on the projector. The principal said my teacher would apologize for yelling at me in front of the class but she never did. UMRS. Capital H. Where's my apology? At my last job during training we had to do an anonymous review of our trainer. I was respectful and honest but it was not a good review of her. I explained why she was bad at training and how she wasn't receptive to questions. Little did I know anonymous meant anonymous to her, but not anonymous to the person reviewing. The person reviewing it was the training supervisor and had chosen her as the lead trainer. He took my honest review as a criticism to the whole program and a criticism to his hiring ability. I was put under a microscope at that point and seen as a problem maker and was ultimately fired. My BFF had 2 boys and they both spoke with speech impediments. They couldn't pronounce their R's. Like that character on The Big Bang. Their elementary school tried getting them into speech therapy but she wouldn't allow it because she thought their speech impediments were cute. I asked her if she ever heard an adult speak like that and I was basically dead to her from that day on. As a true friend, you need to keep it 100% with them. Anyone who doesn't isn't a true friend. I jaff what she thinks. Keeping her kids from getting the therapy they clearly needed and was free through the school is straight up abuse. They're 15 and 16 now and still talk like that. Not me, but a good friend of mine was working as a student teacher at a high school. He had saved up 3 or 4 sick days at the end of the year and decided he was going to use them to go camping and rock climbing. Instead of simply telling his boss he was sick, like a normal person, he told them he was going to use his sick days to go play outside and rock climb. Needless to say, they were not happy. When I asked him WTF he was thinking, he said he was shocked they were upset that he was being honest with them. Cops busted a small party in college and asked everyone for IDs and if they had been drinking. They said either you tell the truth, or we will breathalyze you. If you fall you are going to jail. I was 20 and terrified. So I decided to cooperate because I didn't know any better. I wasn't drunk and had no alcohol with me, but was honest and told the cop that I had a drink at my dorm before coming over. Everyone else I was with either snuck away or flat out lied. Nobody was breathalyzed and I got a wonderful ticket for $700. They recorded me saying I drank at my dorm and sent it to the university who made me take 8 hours of alcohol ed classes and do 20 hours of community service. Never admit to drinking if you are underage. Lie, lie, lie. The whole if you tell us the truth we will help you out is all bullet. Met this lady at a party and friended her on FB in 2010. She was constantly posting fundraisers for her sick son. It was pretty annoying so I unfriended her. I saw her again about 6 months later and she actually noticed I had unfriended her and was confrontational about it. So being drunk and honest I said you posted a lot about your kid and I thought it was annoying so I unfriended the account. I'm not a good person. Predictably she got super pissed and made a big scene. Other people at the party thought I was an asshole. I didn't lose friends over it but there was a lot of residual drama. Whatever. Don't play stupid games if you don't want stupid prizes. Anyway, a few months later she was arrested because she completely made up her son and all the fundraising stuff was a sham. Once I was in a job interview and the owner, now a CEO of a large Australian corporation, asked me if I would lie in order to get his company more profits. I said no. He was incredulous. I didn't get the job but I got a different one in the same company. A completely unqualified person got the job I was going for. Everyone I worked with hated the place. Hated. I have never seen such an unhappy workforce. I joined the Exodus 6 weeks later. One time we noticed a dent in the family car which we used to go to school. My dad was under a lot of pressure at the time and no one wanted to trouble him with this so older brother and mom convinced me to take it to a local shop to have them fix it which eventually I caved and did. Walking back home after dropping the car, my dad's store was on the way, so I decided to stop by and tell him everything. And man, did I get yelled at. Suddenly I was blamed for everything and he made sure I know it. He was mostly pissed because the shop guy is in fact an idiot who would probably duck it up even more. After he was done yelling at me, he called the guy and told him not to touch the car. Then he decided to tell me that the dent was in fact happened while he was using the car. TLDR. Got yelled at after confessing for trying to fix dent of unknown origins in car by my dad. Turns out it was his fault. My French friend got a tourist visa for the United States. At the border control they asked her what her plans were. She said visiting tourist sites, seeing friends and volunteering in order to have housing. This is illegal under the tourist visa in the USA, and she was sent back to France and put on the blacklist. All because she didn't just say that she was there for tourism. Poor girl. Expensive mistake. I got my driving license taken away from me. I live in the UK. Last January I had an epiphany about my life that led me to quit drinking and smoking and start on the road to becoming a paramedic. In applying for the HGV license, the job requires a doctor, asked me if I'd ever had any alcohol problems. I said yes and explained how I had quit some 4 months before so I could turn my life around. Then I had blood tests which were obviously clear. A couple of months later the DVLA contacted me to say not only could I not have the HGV license, but they were taking away my standard driving license too. I have never had any driving offenses or indeed any offenses of any kind. So they punished me simply for telling the truth about how I quit. I'm still trying to get it back. If they don't overturn this decision, it may prevent me from ever reaching my goal. I'm not the most honest person ever, but I did choose to tell my mum the truth about my father. I found out that he was cheating on her for about 2 months when I was using his phone, and I thought about it for a few weeks and decided that my mum deserved to know. So I told her. It destroyed her. Pretty much. She lost it and had a psychotic break. My younger brother was pretty messed up about that too, because seeing your parents fight every day isn't the best when you're 10. I don't regret it, but the consequences weren't pretty. A good friend of mine, to that time, got engaged with her girlfriend and she asked me what my opinion was, and I said that I don't think that was a smart move, because they only knew each other for a few weeks. She was pissed at me for several weeks. Dumb duck. Best friend since middle school had started dating a girl end of high school life. Major drama queen stuff. She constantly accused him of cheating, snuck through his email account, flirted with guys to make him jealous, yelled and screamed all the time. Example, as a college freshman on break, after one of their many fights I followed her home to keep an eye on her as she threatened suicide before leaving. It was a toxic relationship or suffer from hatred to MacLeod in seconds at any time. Eventually in my sophomore year of college they broke up. Of course he is all about how she is the worst human in the world, how free he is, etc. Fast forward 1 year later and neither have found anyone. He calls one day to say that he is back with her and head over heels. They are almost immediately engaged. All his friends think it is a bad idea but keep quiet. I pulled him aside and let him know that while I would always be there for him, this was stupid. She was not good for him. It would not last. It was too fast. This would crash and burn. He needed to pump the brakes. He of course told her what I said and she blew up. He ghosted me and we stopped being friends. Didn't talk for years. And when we run into each other in town even now, 20 years later, it is awkward. More for him than me because 5 years later, with 2 kids, they each cheated on the other. They divorced. He is now married to her former best friend and she slept with one of his friends before moving as payback. Just a total trashy disaster. And everyone could see it coming. Still think I did the right thing. But it made no difference, and in the end, the only measurable result was that our friendship ended. My mom liked using the phrase "if you're crying, you're lying" when I was little. I had, and still have, trouble keeping my emotions steady during stressful conversations. So this kind of it happened a few times. Something happens around the house and mom gets upset. Mom confronts me asking if I'm responsible. I say no, but being accused makes me upset and I cry. If you're crying, you're lying. I get punished. sometimes without even knowing what I did wrong. I got laid off, read fired nicely. I worked on a software development team for a company that makes bar games. The owner got this idea that we would try to put a Wi-Fi AP inside the cabinets of the machines and make it a hotspot and allow people to connect for a fee. So I get called into the meeting. Immediately there's tons of reasons it doesn't make sense. If the bar has Wi-Fi, nobody will use it, and most will have Wi-Fi. Cell data plans are negligible so people won't use the Wi-Fi. They suggested we try and partner with Verizon and put a cell data hotspot in there. Who will pay the bill? Because those charge on data used and it'll be a lot of data in a public place. The bar owner. No. Add to this. Comcast, who control an overwhelming portion of the market, had just started to roll out their Xfinity hotspot thing that makes basically every consumer modem router they issue into a Wi-Fi hotspot for Comcast customers. So everybody. There was no money to be made and only a lot of dev time to waste. So I argued against it pretty hard. I called it asinine and stupid. Eventually I was shuffled out of the meeting and the yes man version of me was brought in. Couple weeks later I was let go. About 10 years ago, a friend and co-worker of mine was fired for something I did. I mean, he literally was not there when it happened. So he called HR, told them what had happened. HR called me and asked me to confirm. I even went to several managers trying to explain that I was in fact the one responsible. That my friend was not even at work when the incident happened. And even if he had been, I still would have been responsible because it was my doing. Instead of rehiring my friend and writing me up, they just called me a liar and that was pretty much my reputation with the managers after that. The only time I ever actually lied to a manager while working there, it was because I was too embarrassed to tell my manager that I had hemorrhoids. So I just said I had a bug. I was in an abusive relationship for a while. At one point, he held the gas down in the car and was accelerating towards a train that was passing by a mile ahead. He threatened to kill me if I didn't tell him the truth. I kept telling him the truth, and he kept pushing on the gas to go faster. I finally lied and told him what he wanted to hear, and he stopped, got out of the car and came to the other side, and just cried and begged me to kill myself for being a horrible person. I can't recall completely what he was wanting to hear. He was demanding that I admit to cheating on him. I think I hadn't, but even though I was telling him the truth, he was ready to kill me. I got sent to principal and got detention. This happened because one time I didn't do my homework and told my teacher. He asked why and I told him that I wasn't in the mood and too lazy for it. He somehow thought I was disrespecting him so he sent me to the principal, who in turn didn't even listen and gave me detention. My mom was disappointed by the situation. When I was in junior high, my close friend who lived in my neighborhood was being beaten by her parents. I was riding my bike one night past their house and heard it. She admitted it too. I told my adjustment counselor at school. The counselor, unethically and illegally, told my friend that I had tackled. DCF got involved but as usual, never did much about it. I am still fairly bitter that the counselor didn't lose her job over it. Told my ex I was bisexual. Suddenly I was ducking my best friend and her husband all the time. I had no idea. Met this girl through some mutual friends. She was laying it on thick. Nicknamed me man because she wants me to melt in her mouth, not in her hand. Said I had a sexy voice, etc. After like 2 hours of this, with me barely responding trying to get away from her, I finally had enough and said you're trying way too hard and it's kind of sad. She spent the rest of the time telling people how much of an asshole I was. Sorry girl, but I just wasn't attracted to you, and made that abundantly clear. But you weren't taking the hints. I realize this sounds very awkward or bullet but, hand to God, it's true. Told the truth to my parents about how I got a nice hole in the bumper of my car. Lost the car for a week and had to pay about a third or so of it. Every time I tell my mom or sis how the food tastes, they ask me and I'm like, it's good, but it kinda tastes a little like soap. They were spitting mad. But weeks later my mom admitted that it was because she put too much ginger into the soup. I managed to ruin a long-term, but obviously worthless, friendship by simply telling the truth. I was starting to feel uncomfortable with the way he was interacting with other people. For example, we were out for coffee one day when this, obviously homeless, woman approached our table and asked for a few coins. Before I could say anything, he had jumped off his seat, started to imitate her in a disgusting way that simply broke my heart, before shooing her away as if she was some sort of stray dog. I couldn't believe what I had seen there, and it was not the only incident of this sort. When calmly telling him how I felt about this and trying to explain to him, and I really tried not to wave my finger, why it's not okay to speak to other people in such a manner, he told me that he couldn't take my moralizing behavior anymore. Friendship over. Though I do not regret that how this friendship ended, it still hurts a lot. I told my parents my view on the abortion referendum and why it affected me personally. It was too important for me, and saying nothing felt worse than outright lying. I used to talk to them every week and we would help each other out with things. We were reasonably close. We are no longer close. Only one parent is speaking to me, and barely. During my bachelor studies, I had just finished my exam and left the hall like an hour early. Programming exam. So if things clicked, you only needed 1 hour at max out of the 2 allotted for the exam. Pretty soon more people followed and me and my friends went to get some lunch. I got a text from another person I knew from the class, asking about solutions to one of the problems we had on the exam. In the back of my mind I kind of knew that the person may very well still be in the examination hall. I ignored that feeling and forwarded them my solution to the problem. Turned out the other person was still inside the exam hall and got caught with my answer on his cell phone. An inquiry was launched, and I was asked if the number which texted him the answer belonged to me. I was using an unregistered prepaid number those days, as they couldn't prove it otherwise. All I had to do was to say no and they would have dropped the matter against me, but I decided to tell the whole truth. They asked for a written statement, which I provided as well, despite the continuous objection of my friends. As it turned out, the tribunal committee which was going to punish both me and the other person had 2 professors who really disliked me, so I was handed the maximum punishment in the university's guidebook, 1 year suspension, with all the courses I took that semester being voided as well. Luckily it wasn't mentioned in my final transcript and I was able to get into a master's program abroad and move on to get a PhD. In middle school, we had this science teacher who was a pretty cool guy, veteran, wrote poetry, overall nice, but on this one assignment, he asked at one point, what grades do you think you should get? Not wanting to oversell myself, I said a 90%. All these other people who had done much less on the assignment put 100s and I thought he would ridicule them for saying that bad work was an A+. When we got the papers back, everyone got exactly what they gave themselves. There's a lesson in here somewhere, but I am not quite sure of what it is yet. Some people can't handle honesty. I've talked about this at length, but in April my mother started dating a guy. Within 2 months he moved in with us. He was not the kind of person I like to hang around with, because he was very racist and homophobic and had a generally unsavory personality. My mom pulled me aside and asked why I haven't tried to bond with her new boyfriend, and I told her the truth, that I didn't like him and she was moving too fast with the relationship. She told her boyfriend what I said, and they colluded to try to throw me out of the house. If it wasn't for my bio dad helping me find a place and with rent, I'd probably be homeless right now. When I was a kid, I snaked some of my parents' booze and gave it to my friends to drink. My dad found out and I thought being honest about taking it, but not drinking it would be the smart way to go. Nope. Got grounded for taking the booze. All my friends were pissed that I told on them and didn't talk to me for a few weeks. I witnessed a fight in middle school. I went to tell a teacher. We, the 2 fighters and I, went to the room where punished students go during class time to talk stuff over. We sit in desks and wait. I think I'm gonna tell the teacher what happened and clear things up quickly. 1 hour passes, and I miss my favorite class. Then the teacher calls all 3 of us to the front. He says a quick sentence to the fighting students and then gives me mine. So next time there's a fight, what are you supposed to do? Me. You must tell the teacher. So yes, I was sent to the counseling room for daring to attempt doing what they wanted me to do. Work wanted to fire someone, so they made some bullet excuse. Asked me to review security video and give my report, which I did. They completely lied in court just to keep the guy from getting unemployment. Then they made my job hell for not playing ball. I worked for an agency that had done some ethically dubious stuff in my time there. I always expressed concern for their practices, but there were also situations I could stay out of and thus not infringe on my own ethics. But one day they did something that would directly involve me, and I adamantly spoke out about it and refused to have any involvement, which meant not performing the duties to which I was assigned. I didn't get in trouble, per se, but they made my life a living hell until I quit. I'm much happier now, and that little escapade definitely bit them in the ass. From what I hear, they still haven't found my replacement, and this was like 3 months ago. I worked at a small business that had less than 10 employees, and I had been working there for about 12 years. During a meeting one day back in 2014 or so, my boss says he wants a funny, quirky viral commercial just like those Old Spice ones, and wants us to make it. Then he asks my opinion about it. I politely, but firmly, explained that companies like Old Spice have very well paid marketing departments that do lots of market and demographic research for their commercials, and that if we try to make our own viral content, at best nothing will come of it and you will have wasted time and money, and at worst we will go viral in the bad way. He didn't like that and gave me the cold shoulder for like a month. I speak truthfully about myself, not of others, it's not worth it, but generally being truthful about myself has not gotten me into too much trouble. When I was a freshman in high school, one of my friends was having a sexual relationship with a guy who was a junior. He was a creep, and I told her sister about it. Her sister told their parents, who flipped out. The friend completely cut me off. I don't regret it, though. That guy was known to go after freshmen and young girls, and he was pretty grabby even if he wasn't trying to duck you. What a piece of it. By speaking truthfully, do you mean not respecting social norms? By trouble, do you mean not respecting social norms in return?